My favorite fighting game was Bloody Roar. I don't know if a lot of people don't know what Bloody Roar is, but
Bloody Roar.
Yeah,
I think I've heard that name. What is that? What does that look like?
It was a 3D fighting game. But you would transform. You had fighters who could transform into beast-like apparitions.
Ooh,
yeah,
okay,
like that
similar
right
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Jacoby Roses meet Sully. Diego Sanchez, power, his energy supreme. Kentucky fights like a wild tree. UFC KFC, the perfect team. Young for the beast, punching disbelief. Roundhouse kick, adrenaline's up there. Young for the beast, fight without grief. Meatlock's on fire, till beats inspire. In the octagon, he'll never tire. Meatlock's on fire, till beats inspire. In the octagon, he'll never tire.
Let's go, Meat Boys, episode 175. Meat Boy, we're going for our 100th Meatlock, so let's keep the streak going. Basil Half-Ass obviously started off easy light work last week, so let's keep it all going. You hear the air horn, and might as well jump into it. Basil Half-Ass, what do you think about it? Because that fight was a little bit closer than I anticipated. Mickey Gall, I thought, in front of his hometown crowd, really actually fought well. One of the better fights of Mickey Gall's career, despite the L, but easy light work, Basil Half-Ass, Meatlock. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, not gonna lie, that was probably the best I've ever seen Mickey Gall look. So props for Basil to absolutely go out there and still get it done. Basil's an absolute savage for his second fight in the UFC, fighting low-key a solid fake veteran. Mickey Gall, pretty darn good. I thought Half-Ass was gonna get it done. I thought he was gonna finish him, but man, Mickey proved me wrong. Mickey's still in it. I think he still has some fights in him, but we need to get his roots back, get him a few tomato cans, because Half-Ass, that is no joke. I mean, we saw Jack Della on a day one fight had a lot of trouble. I think Half-Ass would get that back, and I think Mickey Gall could come back and become a better fighter after this one. There's definitely some promising sign there, because there was a moment before he took his hiatus that we're like, oh, he's done, but like that gives me hope that he could still be in it and have a few more good fights in the UFC. But Basil looked absolutely amazing, tough test for sure with a peak Mickey Gall, but still got it done. Lock nonetheless.
Yeah, lock nonetheless, 99th Meatlock overall, and yeah, you hope Mickey Gall comes back, because I agree with you, it seemed like he has some fight left in him, maybe a little bit more than some anticipated, but again, easy light work, Basil Meatlock, we're going for 100 this week. Before we even talk about UFC KFC, and there's actually kind of some low-key sneakers on this card, I mean, let's just quickly run through UFC 302, Jake Matthews got the win over Phil Rowe. Phil Rowe is pretty bad, we're all over that one. Cesar Almeida versus Roman Kopylov. Kopylov ended up taking that one. Were we overvaluing Caesar Salad? Is he going to be back? Is he just not that great? What were your thoughts on Kopylov versus Caesar?
I remember what I said was, this guy has to wrestle to beat Caesar. I didn't think he was going to go there, but man, was I wrong, because everyone saw. I mean, Caesar has zero grappling takedown defense. I mean, it was the worst wrestling I've ever seen, the worst double legs, the worst takedown attempts, and he couldn't even stop it. Kopylov was doing pretty good the first round. I mean, he even dropped him. That one blew my mind. But second and third round, Caesar started finding it and really hurting him. He was way fresher in the tank because Roman was doing the wrestling, which he's not used to. So he gassed kind of early, it seemed like, and he held on for dear life. That was a total BS fight, but props to Kopylov. He must have watched the video and heard what I said. If you wrestle him, this is an easy job for him. But if you don't, you're going to get snuffed. And he almost got snuffed in that second, third round until he got the takedown and laid on him for the last 3 minutes for the easy decision.
Yeah, we laid out the blueprint for sure, and Crouton Kopylov just made pretty much light work of Cesar Almeida. So wonder what's next for Caesar. The other Almeida on the card, Jailton, easy light work, 90-second finish over Romanov. I had picked Romanov. I mean, we filmed that earlier in the week, right? And then by the time it rolled through, Romanov showed up to the ceremonials looking uninspired, to put it kindly. I kind of thought that that might unfold with an Almeida lock 90-second finish, but nonetheless, picked Romanov. Unfortunately, hate to see it, and it's always keen to wait till we see it at ceremonials, because it seemed like there was a lot revealed, in the sense that once Romanov came in looking like that, the UFC moved it to the prelims. Like, they don't just do that out of nowhere. So some insight to glean, I think, from that move was ultimately the call. Did you see anything in that Jailton fight? And do you think that they make Jailton versus Cyril Gahn next? And if so, who you taking?
Yeah, I mean, Cyril Gahn got submitted by John Jones in 10 seconds. Jailton's grappling is insane. I mean, every grappler he's gone versus, I mean, he did get knocked out by Curtis Blades, but he made Curtis Blades' wrestling and grappling look amateur. I mean, he was getting him down at will, easy work. That first round was nothing but light work. Sure, it wasn't much activity or fun, like punching fight or anything, but he was controlling him for 5 minutes easily. And I would argue Curtis Blades used to be the number one grappler in that division, besides maybe John Jones. But beyond that, Curtis was the man. Jailton Almeida is hands down the Timu Khabib of the heavyweight division, because this guy has nothing but grappling, and when you stuff it or you hit him, Curtis Blades exposed that pretty easily in that second round, but had trouble in the first. Romanov, high-level grappler also, got absolutely ragdolled, even though he had 130 pounds extra weight compared to Almeida, and Almeida was just beast mode on him. So I don't know what's happening there. Romanov is an absolute bum. He deserves to be cut immediately. The dude used to go into the fights with a 12-pack. Now he's got a 12 bag of chicken burgers.
Yeah, no doubt. It was a pretty pitiful performance from Romanov for sure, and who knows what's next? Who even knows if there is a next? But nonetheless, Meat Boy, Randy Brown took out Eliseo dos Santos. Close competitive fight, great action from both guys. Kevin Holland got an I don't want to say easy light work finish in the first round over Oleg Zaitchuk, because it was kind of sketch for a second, right? Oleg Zaitchuk dropped him, and then 30 seconds later, Kevin Holland is doing what he does. It ends up with a submission victory himself. So snapped Michel's arm, gave him the Jamal Hill wobbler, and that was a great performance from Kevin Holland. But nonetheless, let's talk about that co-meet. Sean Strickland wins a split decision technically over Paulo Costa. Seemed like a 5-0, maybe 4-1 victory for Sean, but somehow one of the three judges saw it for 4-1 Costa, which I think was kind of laughable, to be honest. But what'd you make out of Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa, and who's going to beat Sean Strickland?
Yeah, honestly, Sean Strickland looks so dang good that I'm just like, how did Strickland even lose? Like, even though some people say it's controversial and Sean did lose versus Dricus, I had Dricus winning 4-1, 3-2, best case. But holy smokes, Sean Strickland is an absolute animal. He seems unbeatable. He seems untouchable. And it seems that the only style that can beat him is a crazier style than his own. And that's somebody putting more pressure than him, which he puts on more pressure than anyone I've ever seen besides, I guess, Dricus. And Dricus adds the grappling. And that's where, it seemed like that's where it sapped Sean the first fight. And it's just very weird. I can't imagine. It's got to be the most bizarre, frustrating thing to fight Dricus du Plessis. He's so bad that it makes him the best. But I really don't know, beyond maybe a Dricus rematch, if Dricus maybe wins again. I don't know who can beat Sean. I don't even think Izzy could beat Sean, to be honest. Sean just looks untouchable and unstoppable. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see what they decide to do at 185. I mean, that huge fight in, I think it's in Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi, one of the two, Chimaev versus Whitaker, should also factor into whatever happens in the 185 division. But yeah, Sean looked amazing. Paulo, I'm pretty much not interested in seeing another 5-round fight. Like, let's get back to the 3-round meat slingers for Costa. Let him go in there, not worry about having to go 25 minutes, and just throw some bombs, because that's when the racer is at its most fun and most funny, I think. But lastly, finally, Islam took out Dustin Poirier, 5th-round submission. I thought that it would probably end in the 3rd, but Dustin fought well. One judge even had it 2-2 heading into that fateful 5th round, but nonetheless, Islam by finish does ultimately cash. What do you think about Islam versus Dustin?
Yeah, Islam versus Dustin was a great bout. Islam it's very interesting because people are like, oh, he's better than Khabib. He's not as good as Khabib. He's I wouldn't say he's better or worse than Khabib. He's just different. I mean, he's not as safe as Khabib. I would say his wrestling there's no way in heck it's better than Khabib's or more dominant because Dustin stuffed him a good amount of times and looked really great. I don't care how much prep you have. I don't think Dustin could ever stuff Khabib in for the rest of his life. Like even at 80 years old, there's no way he's stuffing him. It's just Khabib's just a different animal. But Islam's striking is so dang good, it blows my mind. I mean, arguably the whole fight, Islam was actually getting the better in the boxing and the stand-up until that fourth couple seconds lived in the fifth round. That was just a crazy fight, a really good fight. Dustin's an absolute G, but Islam is potentially the future GOAT.
Yeah, just a great fight. Dustin obviously proved he still has plenty left. So he, tepidly retired. It kind of seemed like his heart wanted to keep fighting, but his head maybe was telling him that now's the time to exit. He said that this is probably the last time he has that championship opportunity. So if that truly was the last we saw of Dustin, then I think he still went out on top despite getting the L. But I hope he fights again because I feel like he still has some. You hate to use the term money fights, but I think that he still has some big fights left in him. So nonetheless, and lastly, Meat Boy, that kind of puts a cap on 302. Speaking of money fights, though, the next pay-per-view is coming up, and there's a lot of drama going on right now as to whether or not it's even going to go down. So what are your thoughts on Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor? Supposed to be fighting in 3 weeks. You can't buy the pay-per-views anymore. The UFC YouTube channel, they removed all the Conor videos. Michael Chandler says he's officially exited camp and has gone back home. What do you make of all this stuff? Is it clever marketing, or is this fight seriously in jeopardy?
I think 100% the MMA lords are looking after meat because I wasn't able to see that bout because of personal things going on that day. So I really do hope that it gets canceled or moved back to a different date because I did not want to miss that with the boys. But it does. I mean, is this anything we didn't already know, right? Like in the back of our heads, we're like, there's no way this actually happens a year plus ago. Then it fake was going to happen, and we were all kind of stunned. And then it's like, wait, why were we even stunned? We already knew it wasn't going to happen, and this just confirms it. I doubt that this is going to happen this year. If it does, it might be in the end of the year. It just seems like a lot of wishy-washy. We're in Connor's world. You guys got to remember this, and he's having a little too much fun with certain maybe things and going out to the clubs and all that. He's looking pretty wild. He's definitely not training for the fight. And honestly, if I had to put money on it, I think it's all hype, BS, build up maybe, but I think it's all BS because Connor has not been training at all, and I think he pulled a Rosas Jr., but instead of 5 minutes before the fight, he's pulling it weeks before the fight.
Yeah, and I guess that's my biggest question is like if Conor isn't really going to fight on the 29th in 15 25 days, whatever the math is, if he decides he doesn't want to show up, why now? Why would they book the date? Why would they go through all the time spent prior? Like this date has been established for a while now, so like why 3 weeks prior would he bail? And then I guess I wonder, Meat Boy, if Michael Chandler knew that the fight was off, why wouldn't Chandler go on Twitter and be like, why wouldn't he expose the whole thing? Why is he still running cover for the UFC? Because if you're Chandler, they made you wait 2 years, and what, they're going to tell him to just don't comment on the situation, don't blow the lid off it, don't expose it. Like all he said was, I'm going home kind of thing, and straight to the top or whatever Michael Chandler says. Why wouldn't Michael Chandler be fed up with this and blow the lid on Conor truly not being able to fight that night if he wasn't able to fight?
Yeah, it's pretty funny because I don't know if Chandler realizes it, but I think Chandler literally thinks, I don't know, this is kind of me of a personal take, but everyone's like, oh, red panty night if you fight Conor. I don't know why, but I have a hunch that nothing really changes in the quality or leisure or even his bank account too significant if he fights and if he beats Conor. Like, I just don't see Chandler in his last few years of his fighting career, because he is getting older, of him beating Conor if he beats him, and then becoming this Nate Diaz like star. I just think it's just like, oh, okay, it's the guy that waited 4 years for nothing, and then we all felt bad, so we gave it to him. Next, like, let's see Diaz again. Diaz Connor, come on. Like, that's what people want. I don't know why it just kind of feels like that. It feels too simpy for me. It feels too desperate, and I just don't think Chandler realizes that, like, he should just live and move on and, like, get a fight, maybe go for the title again. Or is Chandler kind of fake checked out / retired, and he's pulling a Stipe and just will only fight one guy and never fight anyone else? I don't know. It's very kind of bizarre. I don't see the point or reasoning for Chandler. Think about this. Chandler already did the Ultimate Fighter with Conor. That should have peaked his career, and I would say arguably it did less than nothing. It basically was not, like, no one cared about that season. It was one of the worst seasons, and no one cares about Michael Chandler still. Like, for casual wise, hardcore fans, sure, there's a lot of them, but the casuals, they all know Diaz, they all know Conor. I don't think any casuals know Michael Chandler still, even after the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, not only did he coach the Ultimate Fighter, but I'm pretty sure his fighter only lost like one time, right? Like, didn't Conor go
He
like
won
10
it
straight
all,
weeks
yeah.
without- Yeah, so it was basically all of the Michael Chandler coaching show, essentially, because he had a lot of success. But I guess I just wonder, like, why would he be running cover for the UFC? Why wouldn't he say Connor's out for this reason, blah blah? To me, I don't know, Meat Boy. Maybe I'm just being too optimistic, but I think this is all smoke and mirrors. I think that this is a coordinated nothing to build even more hype for Connor's return. June 4th is today. I think Conor does fight on June 29th. I think that, I don't know, something tells me that this is all smoke and mirrors, and I think that this fight's still going to go down. But if it gets canceled, that's a bad beat. You feel for those who already dropped 4 figures on the tickets, and I guess you're gonna get peanut butter Piper in the meat event versus the Power Bar. But nonetheless, Meat Boy, we could talk about that fight all we wanted to. It's coming up in a few weeks, or maybe it's not. But you ready for UFC KFC? The show's out in Louisville.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's get off with a strong Meatlock. Once again, 100th Meatlock nonetheless.
Yeah, going for 100 and swap us over, Meat Boy, because it's dog lock. You see the text, and it's Thiago Meaty Moises taking on Ludovic Klein, who is 21-4-1, 5-2-1 in the UFC, and he hasn't lost since late 2021 when our boy Nate the Train Landwehr absolutely smoked him with the nice third-round Anaconda choke. But it has been good stuff for Ludovic. The only blemish, you could say, is the majority draw against Jai Herbert, which kind of was a fight that Herbert dominated. He just made some silly, boneheaded errors that rendered him ultimately with the draw. But nonetheless, he's taken on Moises, and we like Moises as a dog lock. Moises is a guy who's also had success lately. He's won 3 of 4. And if you look at his losses, I mean, Thiago Moises has lost to BSD. He's lost to Peak Joel Alvarez, the champ Islam, Demir Ismagulov, and Benil Dariush. So those are all like top 10 guys at the lightweight division. Maybe not Joel Alvarez, but all the others for sure. And Ludovic Klein's best win is Ignacio Bahamondes. So what are your thoughts on this Meatlock? What do you like about Meaty Moises? And why do you think the odds makers are sleeping so heavily on our boy Thiago and riding the hype train in Ludovic?
Yeah, honestly, I'm a little lost on this one, unless there's some inside information we aren't aware of, hurt an injury in camp or something, then maybe this makes sense. But this makes no logical sense, and whoever's running the books is an absolute casual. Thiago Moises is the absolute levels test, and Ludovic Klein is nowhere near, in my opinion, top 10, top 15. The dude's low-key bum. And Thiago Moises is going to absolutely ragdoll him from beginning to end. I think he even get a finish in the late second round, to be honest.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be that crazy because Thiago Moises, especially recently, I mean, of his last 3 wins, they've all been by finish. He's kind of rediscovered his finishing capabilities because for a while he was kind of a decision machine, right? Alexander the Great, Abe Hernandez got decisions against him. Bobby Green is a great win, another decision for Moises. But recently he's been picking up finish after finish, right? Mitch Ramirez, whoever that is, got absolutely smoked. Melky Costa, second round, got submitted. And then Christos Yagos, a.k.a. the Spartan, got smoked in like 5 seconds in that first round. So if Meaty Moises picks up a sneaky finish over Ludovic, you'll be getting some juicy numbers for sure. But where do you anticipate Moises having the most technical advantages in this one against Ludovic because they're kind of both well-rounded. They both do most things well. But where do you anticipate Moises just being leaps and bounds better than Ludovic?
Yeah, no, I think Thiago Moises' stand-up is 10 times better, and I think his wrestling is 10 times better. Cardio, 10 times better. I just don't know any position or any scenario where Ludwig Klein is going to outmatch him. Obviously, this is MMA. Anything is possible, but man, I do like this as a juicy dog lock, and this should be a dominant one in my opinion.
Yeah, 100% juicy dog lock for sure. And we know Moises lastly is a guy who's been training at ATT for however long, right? And ever since he's been there, he's really gone to a new level. Versus Mr. Highlight, who rolls at Spartacus Fight Gym, and the best fighter there is Attila Pumkuli Vague. So not as great of a high level of competition that you see at ATT. So it's a dog lock nonetheless. No other way to secure our 100th meat lock. We're trying to net 65% throughout our first successful 100 meat locks. And to keep it simple, we throw down 100. It's going to net 105. Get us again the 100th meat lock. Keep the meat lock win streak alive. And meeting Moises, I'm going to ultimately say by decision, but I like your idea of finish because I don't think that's out of the question as well. So Thiago by finish is the meat lock for you?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, switch us over to the Meat Boy because in this next fight, it's two dudes who seemingly desperately need a win, and two dudes. If you rewind just a couple years, both had some hype at one point. Puna Soriano 9-4 is 3-4 in the UFC, but this is a guy who joined the UFC by storm, had two easy light work finishes, and then ran to Brendan Allen, and it's basically been downhill since then. Whereas Miguel Baeza, same story, right? Starts his UFC career 3-0, has finishes over Matt Brown, Takashi Tansato, and then runs into Ponzinibbio and has been getting smoked ever since. So in this battle, I don't want to say battle of the bums because both these guys had potential at one point. One of these guys is going to beat KFC. The other might start a new win streak. So are you taking Carmel Thunder, Baeza, or is your boy Puna coming back?
Yeah, this is a great fight, fun fight, battle of the bums indeed, but I gotta imagine Puna Healy's coming back with some absolute fresh new coconut bombs, and Baez is gonna get a little bit of a lick.
Yeah, if you think that he's getting a little bit of a lick of the coconut bombs, do you anticipate this fight being early and often over before it even begins? Because with Baeza recently, he's been getting finished, and most concerningly, I mean, he got finished by Andre Fiallo in the first round, and that was basically over 2 years ago. So it's one of two things. Baeza spent 2 years refining his craft and comes back with a Khalil Roundtree-like vengeance, or Fiallo just absolutely took his soul 2 years ago, and it's a shell of a Carmel Thunder man coming into the ring. So, what do you anticipate Miguel Baeza? How do you anticipate him showing up in this fight against Puna?
Yeah, Miguel Baeza, he better come with a big gas tank and ready to go 3 rounds because Puna definitely seems to lack in the later rounds. He seems to get gassed if you try to grapple a bunch. But I think this is going to be a stand-up fight. I think Miguel Baez is going to keep it on the feet and try to really outstrike him. And maybe he's a little slicker or something on the feet, but Puna has some absolute bombs, and he's going to find that chin eventually, in my opinion, in the first or second round.
Yeah, Puna's lost 4 of his 5, but that one finish was over Dalcha, not champion, and he slept him with one of those heavy overhand meat bombs. So, he has that in him. This one's tough for me, meat bomb. I've been going back and forth. Minus 192 is crazy for Miguel. Like, this has to be a pick 'em, but Puna plus 160. I think just for the odds sake, you have to roll with Puna in this one because to me that just seems like a little bit better value. So I'm gonna go roll with you, Meatball. I don't ever pick Puna Soriano in a fight. Rarely am I heaping praise on your boy Puna for Meat Boy's sake, but nonetheless, I'm gonna trust your judgment. Is it a Puna Heli meat bomb and Miguel's going to sleep early?
I think so. I think it's an early and often. I think it's a one touch, he's done, or it's a pretty solid back and forth, and maybe Miguel gets a decision. But I don't know. I'm just feeling a KO. Puna is due for a nice KO.
Yeah, someone's getting slept for sure, and Carmel Thunder is a big dude, right? He's going to have a nice reach advantage. He's 6'2", Puna's barely 5'10", says he's 5'11", but I don't buy that. So if Baeza comes and just stiffens Puna, that's not surprising to me either, Meat Boy, but for Meat Boy, I'll roll with you. I'll take Puna by finish. Don't love it though. Swap us over though. You ready for Dusty, Dink, and Bruno?
Yeah, no, the Dinkelman and Hulk smash is definitely be a good one.
Yeah, it should be funny. I mean, what do you say about Dusty Dinks? I mean, this is a guy who, speaking of Puna, just got absolutely smoked by Dusty, right? Performance of the night finish for Dustin. Picked up a nice second round finish, and that was back in December, so about 5 months ago. And it was nice to see because Dusty had lost 4 of 5. His one win was against Dwight Grant, and everyone beats Dwight Grant. So you wondered what Dustin was really offering in the UFC, coming in off that surprise YOLO finish over our boy Joe Pyfer. So Dusty's back on track with the win over Puna. Bruno, meanwhile, is also back on track with his first round finish over Phil Hawes, and that was great to see because Nursultan just months prior had absolutely slept the Hulk, basically exposed him, took all of his hype, and then with a win over Phil Hawes, Bruno's confidence is pretty much back. So the odds makers are loving the Hulk in this one, minus 265. Do you see any dog odds plus 215 for Dusty Dink, Dustin Stoltzfus, or is he getting slept?
Yeah, this is a funny one also. But yeah, I think the Hulk is gonna actually lose this one. I mean, the Hulk's got some pretty unbelievable power, but I think Dusty Dinkelman is gonna get the sub or the decision. I gotta imagine that he doesn't get caught by T-Rex arms, and he knows that he's gonna get knocked out if he gets touched. So I think he's gonna play it safe, maybe get it to the ground and try to ground and pound or a submission.
Yeah, you got to imagine that the playbook that Almeida had to deal with against Crouton Copylock is probably similar to what Bruno will be anticipating versus Dusty. Because if Dusty tries to go out there and just stand and bang with the Hulk, he's probably just like RoboCop, going to be malfunctioning and likely asleep. So, do you anticipate Stoltzfus trying to go for the clinch, go for that takedown early and often? And if so, I mean, Ferreira is a Brazilian dude, always training with guys who are super well rounded. So, do you think that Bruno might offer some defense, or is the Hulk really only out there to smash?
Hulk is only out there to smash. He has no grappling whatsoever. So Dusty knows the clear path to victory. I see this as another dog, solid take, and I think this dog is cashing.
Yeah, again, he's plus 215, riding a nice win, and the Hulk, meanwhile, is around minus 265, also riding a nice win. But Tapology's awfully bullish on the Hulk meat point. 94% is rolling with Bruno. It's basically all brown. Of the 6% roll with Dusty Dink, it's basically there's some beige, there's a little bit of copper. Someone even says that Dusty wins by KO, but I'm going to have to roll it to 94% meat boy. Nothing that Dusty has shown me gives me any encouragement against most fighters, and that includes the Hulk, because I think Hulk is going to go out there and probably stiffen Dustin within a couple minutes. I don't know though, because Dusty, like you said, is a little bit more well-rounded, and this could be similar to like a Damon Jackson, the Leech style fight, where this guy just comes out and surprises a hype train. So I'll take the Hulk a little bit reluctantly, I suppose, but I'm gonna say by a first round finish. Dusty, by finish is your call.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Dusty gets this done. I think he gets a submission or a decision win, as long as he doesn't get that chin touched by Hulk smash.
Yeah, we'll see how that one goes down for sure. But swap us over, meat boy. That one's funny. This next one's funny. And the last time we've broken this down before, and it was even a meat lock at the time. Rosas Jr. was supposed to be opening a card in Mexico City against Ricky Turcios in what should have been an easy meat lock dub for us. But nonetheless, Rosas had some tummy issues just minutes prior to the contest and ultimately had to bail on the affair. But there was a little bit of heightened pressure on that one. I mean, teenager opening up the main card in Mexico City. That was a chaotic, crazy environment that ultimately seemingly pushed Rosas away, but they're making this fight happen again now about 2 months later in Louisville, Kentucky. So no longer opening a main card in Mexico, and is third from the top at the KFC Yum Center in Louisville, Kentucky. So different nerves, I guess, in this one, but the rematch versus Turcios is alive, and Turcios is 12-3, 2-1 in the UFC. And one thing I found a little bit interesting about this fight is that when we originally meatlocked Rosas Jr., he was closer to minus 285. In this fight, he's around minus 230. So the odds makers aren't as bullish after seeing what happened the first two of these guys, this first time these two guys were going to fight. So what do you make of the slight odds switch? Is that justified and you're a little bit less confident in Rosas Jr., or could we have just uploaded that meatlock and all the Rosas meatlock points we made 2 months ago still ring true? Who do you take?
Yeah, man, fake Diego Sanchez, he won the Ultimate Fighter, but since then he has not looked too good or promising. Rosas has only been looking better and better each fight, it feels. But, he did have that little tummy tickle, and that just doesn't give me the confidence that I had when we first meatlocked it. This could be a closer fight than anybody expects, but I gotta still lean Rosas Jr. I don't know, he just seems better when I've seen him fight versus fake Diego Sanchez. But I don't know, when you have Jared Cannonier and fake Diego Sanchez with the Crystals of Doom, you just can't count these guys out. These guys are nose jokes. When they start getting that healing energy and stuff, I don't know. So I'm going to take Rosas, but I'm definitely not the most confident.
Yeah, and that's a great point because you got to imagine that Jared Cannonier will have something in the back, right? And whether or not there is that true divinity, that true alignment with the crystals that Ricky Tercios will have in his locker, I don't know. There could be some sort of crazy heliocentric spherical stuff going on there. But nonetheless, Tercios, again, he's fought some bad guys, right? He split decision Kevin Natividad, pretty close fight, pretty bad fight. He lost to Ayman Zahabi, who is a pretty mid-tier fighter, and then he has another split decision win over Brady Heastan in his debut. So he's been eking out these split decisions. Rosas, meanwhile, he lost to C-Rod, and C-Rod is a pretty underrated fighter at the bantamweight division, but his wins are against Jay Perrin and Terrence Mitchell, aka the Alaskan Bullworm. So it seems as though Rosas has also faced some pretty bad competition as well. Have you just seen enough from the skill development, or at least more skill development from Raul, where it still gives you confidence over Tercios' Crystals?
Yes, 100%. Just the pace he puts on, his skill, he's been leveling up pretty darn good. I gotta imagine he should have this one in the bag.
Yeah, he should have this one done, right? He's younger, fresher. He's 19. Tercios, meanwhile, is 31. But again, this is a different environment. This is in Louisville, Kentucky, and perhaps Pretty Ricky will be in his element. But I'm with you. Let's still continue to roll with El Nino Problema. Tapology's still bullish on Rosas, 86%. Majority copper, but there is a lot of love for the decision. That's my pick ultimately, Meepo. I think that Pretty Ricky finds a way to do those kiosks, survive all 15, and manage not to get finished. So I'll take Rosas Jr. by decision. Do you like Rosas by finish or decision?
I like Rosas by finish. I think he's going to submit him or TKO him on the ground. I think his grappling's levels above Ricky, but maybe I'm wrong and it goes decision. I don't know. This is a weird one. You just don't know when the crystals will be activated.
Yeah, and you would think he'll have the grappling advantage, but I also didn't really notice. But Ricky Tercio is somehow bigger than Rosas Jr. The same height, Ricky has a little bit of a reach advantage, so it's gonna be fun to see because Ricky's gonna be trying to keep that distance on the feet, whereas Rosas is gonna be trying to ragdoll. But nonetheless, I got Rosas decision. You got Rosas finish. Swaps over me, boy, because it's the co-meet, and I feel like this fight card is just stacked with fighters who need an opportunity to turn their career around, and who fits that bill more than JV Baseball, Dominic Reyes, who is 6-4 in the UFC, but has lost 4 straight. So you do the math. This dude was 6-0 at one point, wins over Jared Cannonier, wins over Uzdemir, OSP, Chris Weidman, performance of the night. It was all going well for Reyes, and arguably he beat John Jones, but the judges said he did not, and he has not won since then. And he's taken on Dustin Jacoby, who is 19-8-1, but he's 7-3-1 in this second UFC tenure of his. If you remember, this is a guy who was in the UFC way back, didn't have a lot of success, left the promotion, then came back in late 2020, and has since been on kind of a tear, but he's lost 3 of 4, and his only win was to a performance of the night finish over Kenny Nzechukwu. So what are your thoughts on this one? Does JV Baseball finally get back on track, or is his chin seriously gone? And even with a near 2-year layoff at this point, because we haven't seen him since November of 2022, so about a year and a half, with that layoff, is he coming back ready, rejuvenated, or is the JV Baseball story just over?
Yeah, I gotta imagine the JV baseball player is gotta bounce back. If he isn't, he might as well sign up for BKFC today. I just don't know. He might be signing up for BKFC. His chin is non-existent. He hasn't taken 5 years off to recover that chin, and he just keeps getting snuffed every time he gets touched. So, Jacoby as a pretty decorative, kickboxer, stand-up fighter. Unless JV baseball is the best wrestler of all time randomly, I think this is gonna be bad.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way, meat boy. I think that the layoff is going to do Dominic Reyes even more harm than activity would have, and that's scary to say because the activity that we were seeing from JV baseball was him actively getting slept early and often. But I don't think that this is a great matchup for him in a return, even though it's a winnable opponent because Dustin Jacoby can lose technically, but I think that this fight is going to be over before it began because one thing about Dustin Jacoby is when he loses, he's losing decisions, right? No one's ever finishing Dustin Jacoby. The dude has an absolute chin. I mean, he ate some bombs from Khalil Roundtree, and that was just a split decision. He ate some bombs from Murzakanov, and Menafield was landing some bombs too. But even though he lost all those fights, he never got finished. Whereas we've seen what happens when JV baseball gets cracked, right? Ryan Spann, 80 seconds. JV was asleep. Yuri KO second round, and JV had some moments in that one, but he was still sleeping in the end. And then Jan Blachowicz finished him as well. So it just seems like if we're talking chin versus chin, the Hanyak has one, Dominic Reyes has doesn't have another. So I like Dominic to get slept in this one. Tapology is pretty bullish on Jacoby too. It just seems like they are struggling with the idea of picking the Devastator when all we've seen from him recently throughout the last few contests is him getting slept. So do you think that 77% going with the Hanyak is justified, or were you expecting an even wider discrepancy for Dustin Jacoby backers?
You know what? I'm not surprised, but I kind of assumed that 100% of the people, not even a portion, would be going for JV baseball player. He hasn't really shown much except for he's really good at getting knocked out. So I would imagine that everyone would have gone for Jakovsky, but the backers for the JV football player, I guess they see hope. They see that maybe he's bouncing back and he's due for one. He's got to get this one, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, someone's backing him, and I mean they do say that the Stony Brook alumna. There's a lot of those guys, so perhaps they're the ones pumping the line. But nonetheless, I like Jacoby by finish in this one. Is that your final pick too? Jacoby by is it first round finish?
Yeah, I would say Jacoby by first round, maybe early second.
Maybe early second. Let us know down low if we're sleeping on the homie Reyes, but we think he's sleeping against Jacoby. So last one, Meat Boy, swap us over. Killer Gorilla versus Imavov. It's essentially a pick 'em, but Imavov is 29. Killer Gorilla is 40 plus, and Killer Gorilla, I mean, despite him being 40 plus, he still has shown a lot of life recently. I mean, the last time we saw him was basically 10 months ago, about a year ago actually, and it was a fight of the night win over Marvin Vittori, aka Blocky, and then in the fight before that, he won a split decision over Sean Strickland, and that was a very close fight. Could have gone to Sean, but either way, a fight that Killer Gorilla was obviously in. So he still has been looking good despite his age, and he's taking on Imavov, who the last time we saw him was probably the best version we've ever seen. He took out Roman Dolidze, and that was a fight that he was really dominating, and it ended up being a majority decision, but that was because he made some silly mistakes and had a point deducted. But it was a dominant performance of Imavov, and the no contest before that against the Milkman was also pretty dominant for Imavov as well, but Chris Curtis found a way out with that accidental clash of heads. So in this one, are you taking the OG Killer Gorilla peaking at age 40 or level 40 as he would call it, or are you riding Imavov at the 29-year-old hype beast to get that marquee win he needs and vault himself into title conversation? Who you taking?
Yeah, this is a good fight. Man, Jared Cannonier is never any slouch. But that age, I think I said this last time too. I was like, man, I gotta imagine that age is kind of getting to him, and he's probably gonna lose versus Marvin Vittori. And he won that pretty convincingly. And then he right before that he beat Sean Strickland, which is crazy split. I had Sean winning that one, but beside the point. I don't know. I think being 40 now, there's no. if he wins this, I will be mind blown. I'm sorry. Imavov should absolutely ragdoll him. He's 29. He's only getting better. He looked great versus Roman Dolidze. Roman Dolidze is no joke. Roman Dolidze has been ripping a lot of people's heads off, except for Marvin and Imavov. So this is definitely a close bout, but I gotta go with the 29-year-old just because of the age. If it was peak Cannonier, 35 versus Imavov, I would probably be picking Cannonier. Cannonier is just a grizzled vet. He's very high level, but Imavov's really been showing he's been leveling up too. So I'm gonna roll with the Imavov, but it's really a toss-up for me.
Yeah, good stuff. It's definitely a toss-up for me as well. The odds are essentially a pick 'em, but they lean slightly in Imavov's favor. But you mentioned, if this was 5 years prior Killer Gorilla when he was 34, 35, but if we really rewind, Meat Boy, and go back those 5, 6 years, I mean, Killer Gorilla had lost 3 of 4. He was fighting in the wrong weight class, and then he goes to 185, and since then has won 7 of his 9 contests in the division. So he seems to me like a guy who has really peaked late in his career. I mean, sometimes we see it from these guys where somehow the best fights that they have are late 30s, and in Killer Gorilla's case, early 40s. So definitely a rare case, and on paper, it seems like a crazy idea to pick a 29-year-old fighter over the Killer Gorilla who is 40. But I don't know, me boy, in this one, it's basically a pick 'em, and Tapology is overwhelmingly rolling with Killer Gorilla. So they think that that version we saw against Blocky, against Sean Strickland, is still better than even this surging hype beast Russian sniper. Because, again, 69% rolling with Killer Gorilla, 31% is going with Imavov, and what I thought was most surprising was it's basically based on both sides. So the Tapology Timmies are expecting this fight to go the distance. If you're picking the Russian sniper, do you think decision is most likely, or is he going to get a finish in this one over Killer Gorilla?
Killer Gorilla does not go down easily. I think this is going to be a decision war. I can see Killer Gorilla maybe getting the win. KO, he hits harder than anything, but I think Imavov wins by decision.
Yeah, good stuff. I see a pathway for sure to Imavov decision. And then one thing I want to ask you about, you mentioned, I think, that maybe he gets ragdolled Killer Gorilla. Imavov has those long, nice punches, and he does clinch up well and close the distance. Do you anticipate this featuring a lot of grappling, or if it is on the feet, is Russian Sniper going to have an advantage there too?
If he stays on the feet, on the ground, I think Russian Sniper should have the advantage, but man, it just depends. Is Killer Gorilla Yoel Romero, freak of nature, crystal healer, or is Killer Gorilla Dunzo?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I had almost forgotten, so I'm glad that you brought out the crystals too, because you're kind of pulling me in the Imavov direction, and low-key convincing me that the Russian Sniper might get this one done at 29, but I can't neglect those crystals. I don't think that they will be activated. I don't think they will have worked for the Tercios fight, but come meet event, Meat Boy, in Louisville, Kentucky. I mean, there's going to be a strange energy in that building, and a pretty scrappy main event like this, in my opinion, has to equal a Killer Gorilla finish. So I'm taking Killer Gorilla to get a 4th or 5th round finish over what I expect to be a gassed Imavov, because I haven't seen Imavov in those later rounds. This is a guy who, I mean, yes, he did go 5 against Roman Dolidze, and he didn't seemingly have much of a cardio issue. I just anticipate a different type of opponent coming in his direction in the form of a crystallized Cannonier. So I'm taking Cannonier by late finish. This could be Imavov's moment, though. So are you pretty bullish on Nasruddin?
Yeah, I'm pretty bullish. I think he should get this done. The later the fight goes, I gotta imagine his youth should prevail, but I don't know. We'll see if those crystals kick in or not.
Yeah, good stuff. Because again, anticipating a 40-year-old fighter having the advantages in later rounds might be a little bit scrappy, but we'll see for sure. Let us know down low if you're taking Nasruddin Imavov or you're rolling with the Crystal Cannon. Lastly, people, we went 5-3 last week. We broke down 6 this week. It's UFC KFC. Is it a 6-piece? Is it a straight 6-0 sweep for you this week?
I think I'm going 5-1.
5-1 for you. I'm gonna roll with the 6-piece. I have a feeling that this one is Lock City all the way through, and I think all the boys are coming through. All I know is that the 100th meatlock, we finally hit that, meat boy. That is quite the milestone. Thiago Moises should get us there. So, any last thoughts on UFC KFC, meat boy?
No, this is a fun bout, fun fight nonetheless. Smash subscribe, smash like. Throw in the comments who you taking and why, and if you agree or disagree, let us know below.